Welcome to today's Catholic Daily Readings from Christus Dominus Bread of Life. A reading from the letter of St. Paul to the Romans. Therefore, brothers, we are not debtors to the flesh, so as to live according to the flesh. For if you live according to the flesh, you will die. But if by the Spirit you mortify the deeds of the flesh, you will live. For all those who are led by the Spirit of God, these are the sons of God. For you have not received a spirit of servitude again, so as to fear, but you have received the Spirit of the adoption of sons, by whom we cry out, Abba, Father. For the Spirit himself renders testimony to our spirit that we are sons of God. But if we are sons, then we are also heirs, certainly heirs of God, but also co-heirs with Christ, if of course we suffer with him, so that we may also be glorified with him.
Arise, O God, let your enemies be scattered. Let those who hate you flee before your face. As smoke is driven away, so drive them away. As wax melts before the fire, so let the wicked perish before you. But the righteous rejoice before you, O Lord, and sing for joy in your presence.
Our God is the God of salvation.
Father of orphans, defender of widows, you dwell in holiness, strong and kind. You give the forsaken a home. You lead the captives out to freedom. You lift the broken-hearted from the dust and crown the weary with joy.
Our God is the God of salvation.
Our God is the God of salvation, the Lord who bears our burdens day by day. You are our refuge, our deliverer, the one who opens the gates of life.
Our God is the God of salvation.
Blessed be the Lord who carries his people, who rescues the lowly from their chains. You walk with the wounded through the valley. You shine your light upon our pain. The mountains melt before your presence, and the heavens proclaim your name. You ride upon the clouds in majesty. Your voice is thunder and mercy combined. You scatter darkness with radiant power. You remember the poor and the blind. The earth trembles, the heavens rain blessing, and all creation sings your praise. To the lonely heart you send your spirit, to the trembling soul your strength. You restore what has been broken and call the bound to rise again. You are near to the crushed in spirit, and you never abandon the lost.
Our God is the God of salvation.
Our God is the God of salvation, the Lord who bears our burdens day by day. You are our refuge,
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Now he was teaching in their synagogue on the Sabbaths, and behold, there was a woman who had a spirit of infirmity for 18 years, and she was bent over, and she was not able to look upwards at all. And when Jesus saw her, he called her to himself, and he said to her, "Woman, you are released from your infirmity." And he laid his hands upon her, and at once she was straightened, and she glorified God. But the leader of the synagogue, indignant that Jesus had cured on the Sabbath, responded by saying to the crowd, "There are 6 days on which you ought to work. Therefore, come and be cured on those, and not on the day of the Sabbath." Then the Lord responded to him and said, "Hypocrites, does not each one of you on the Sabbath release his ox or donkey from the manger and lead it to water? And so should not this daughter of Abraham, whom Satan has bound for these 18 years, be released from this restraint on the day of the Sabbath?" And when he said these things, all his adversaries were ashamed, and all the people rejoiced in all the things that were being done gloriously by him. Join us for today's reflection. There's something you need to understand about being bent over. It's not just that you can't see where you're going, it's that you forget what standing upright even feels like. After 18 years of staring at the ground, you stop imagining sky. Your body learns the shape of bondage so completely that freedom becomes unthinkable, not impossible, unthinkable. Your mind can't conceive what your body hasn't experienced in nearly 2 decades. This is why slavery is so dangerous, not the ancient kind with chains and masters, though that's horrific enough. The kind Paul talks about where you receive a spirit of slavery and fall back into fear. That kind of slavery rewires how you think. You start believing the bent-over position is just who you are. You stop coming forward when someone calls. You assume the binding is permanent. Here's what makes this story devastating. Jesus didn't heal this woman because she asked. She didn't push through the crowd like the bleeding woman. She didn't have friends lower her through a roof. She was just there, bent over like she'd been hundreds of times before, probably in the same spot, probably invisible to everyone around her. She'd given up, and that's when Jesus saw her. He called her forward. Think about what that meant. She hasn't looked anyone in the eye for 18 years. Now she has to shuffle forward, bent over, while everyone watches. She has to come to the front of the synagogue in her bondage, fully visible in her brokenness. That took courage even to respond. "Woman, you are freed from your infirmity." Past tense, already done. Before he touches her, she's freed. The touch comes after the freedom is spoken. Then she straightens up, not gradually, not over weeks of physical therapy. Immediately, muscles that haven't worked in 18 years suddenly work. A spine that's been curved suddenly straightens. She sees faces. She sees sky. She sees Jesus. Now watch what happens. The synagogue leader doesn't celebrate. He gets angry, not at the miracle. He can't deny it happened. He gets angry at the timing. There are 6 days for work. Come get healed on one of those. Don't bother us on the Sabbath. This is where it gets personal, because he's not wrong about the law. Sabbath was serious. God himself rested on the 7th day. The commandment was written in stone. The leader is defending something actually sacred. And Jesus calls him a hypocrite anyway. Why? Because he's treating the woman differently than he treats his livestock. You untie your donkey on the Sabbath to give it water. That's work too, but you do it because the animal needs care. You value the donkey's comfort over strict Sabbath observance. But this woman, a daughter of Abraham, Jesus calls her, emphasizing she's not an outsider but family. This woman you want to stay bound another day because freeing her violates your interpretation of proper procedure. The word Jesus uses is crucial. Ought she not be loosed from this bondage? Loosed. The same word you'd use for untying a donkey. You loose animals for convenience, but won't loose humans for freedom. Your religion has taught you that rules about God matter more than reflecting God's character. You've learned to defend the system while ignoring the people the system was supposed to serve. Paul's teaching cuts right to this. You didn't receive a spirit of slavery to fall back into fear. But that's exactly what happens when religion becomes about defending rules rather than reflecting the Father's heart. You start operating from fear. Fear that if we don't enforce every detail, the whole thing falls apart. Fear that if we show mercy in one case, chaos follows. fear that God's honor depends on our rigid enforcement of policy. The spirit of adoption does something completely different. It makes you cry out, Abba, Father. That word mattered in the first century. Abba was intimate, childlike, the word you'd use climbing into your father's lap. Slaves didn't call masters Abba. Slaves said Lord Master, sir, maintaining distance and formality. Children said Abba, assuming intimacy and welcome. When you operate from spirit of adoption, you start seeing people the way a father sees children. The synagogue leader saw the bent-over woman as a case, a problem, a potential violation of sacred rules. Jesus saw her as a daughter of Abraham who'd been bound too long and needed to be freed immediately. One perspective produces criticism, the other produces healing. Here's what this means practically. There are people in your life right now who are bent over. Not physically, though maybe that too. But bent over under shame, under addiction, under abuse, under depression, under systems that keep them trapped. They've been bent over so long they've stopped imagining freedom. They show up out of habit but don't expect anything to change. You have authority you don't realize, not to work miracles, that's Christ's job, but authority to loose people from bondages you're maintaining, sometimes through your judgment that keeps them ashamed, sometimes through your systems that keep them trapped, sometimes through your silence that leaves them isolated, and most of the time you don't loose them because the timing isn't convenient, or the method isn't approved, or the rules say to wait. The synagogue leader thought he was defending God's honor by enforcing Sabbath law. He was actually revealing that his religion had made him less compassionate than he was toward livestock. He'd give his donkey water on the Sabbath, but make a woman stay bent over because policy matters more than people. Jesus had no patience for it. Every time religious leaders tried to trap him with Sabbath violations, he healed someone, deliberately, publicly, on the Sabbath, not because he didn't value rest. He created the Sabbath. Because the Sabbath was made for humans, not humans for the Sabbath. The rules exist to serve human flourishing, not the other way around. If you're in Christ, Paul says you're a child, an heir, joint heirs with Christ. That's not just about future inheritance, that's about present authority. Children in a father's house have authority to act in the father's character. When you see someone bent over, you don't have to check with religious authorities about whether the timing is convenient. You have the Father's Spirit. You know his character. Loose them. The woman immediately straightened up and glorified God. That's what freedom does. It produces worship. Not from guilt or obligation, but from the explosion of joy that comes when bondage breaks after 18 years. She couldn't help it. Her body that had forgotten how to stand straight remembered instantly. Her voice that had maybe grown quiet from years of staring at ground suddenly praised God loud enough for everyone to hear. Meanwhile, the synagogue leader is still criticizing Jesus. He's so locked into defending the system that he can't even pause to thank God for the miracle he just witnessed. A woman who couldn't straighten up for 18 years is standing right there, looking him in the eye for the first time ever, glorifying God, and he's mad about scheduling. That's what operating from a spirit of slavery does. It makes you blind to freedom even when it's standing directly in front of you. You get to choose spirit of slavery or spirit of adoption, fear-based rule enforcement or father-hearted freedom, being the person who keeps people bent over because the timing isn't right or being the person who looses them immediately because they've been bound too long. The crowd knew which one they wanted. When Jesus loosed the woman, all his adversaries were put to shame, and the whole crowd rejoiced at the splendid deeds done by him. Even people who aren't bent over know which approach reflects God better.